Ex-Trump supporters, what was the last straw? His response to the protests. I truly believe he has lost his beep mind now. I'm curious to know your opinions before the protests. Looking back, do you think there were other things that should have raised these concerns? This is a genuine question. I'm not trying to rile you up. It's been a slow but continuous decline. I voted third party last time, but I was hopeful in the beginning. For a couple years things were looking up, from my point of view. But the non-stop antagonizing just wore me down. His response to the protest, though, has shoved me flying off the wagon. When I started to realize that when he said he was a great businessman, he actually meant he was a great businessman only for his friends around the world in high places. Somebody in another thread said something like, he's managed to make money for the right people to land him where he is. Not me, but a family member. He's a staunch Catholic and firm Republican. What happened in Lafayette Park was what finally did it for him. Having federal agents literally assault peaceful protesters so he could walk across the street for a photo op where he waved around an upside-down Bible using a church as a prop was more than he could take. Respectfully, I genuinely don't understand how anyone in their right minds can think he has a religious inclination. I will 100% admit I'm a half-assed Catholic at best, and much of religion is based on morality, of which he lacks. One prime example is his defrauding of a non-profit organization. Even before that, how can you cheat on your wife and call yourself a devout Christian Catholic? My intentions are not to attack you or your family member, but where the heck is this notion coming from? Honestly, I think it is simply where you get your information from. If you watch nothing but Fox News, you'll think Trump is a great man that doesn't follow conventional rules but has done great things for America. Arguing with what someone sees on TV, whom they trust to tell them the news, combined with reading the Twitter feed of the man who is supposed to be the most powerful man on earth, is difficult to counteract with logic and facts. That's literally why alternative facts were invented. But there comes a point where nobody can defend or rationalize it anymore. Where no numbers of talking heads can explain the pictures and videos. And that's why I truly believe democracy will prevail. I mostly avoided the news and politics because it was such a contentious subject. I defend Trump saying, "No, but it's all bad." Clearly there must be some sort of misunderstanding. You're being too hard on him. The media just loves tearing people apart. One day, someone quoted some completely ludicrous, childish tweet of his, and, to prove they were exaggerating or taking things out of context, I looked for Trump on Twitter to find the context and actual quote. I was absolutely horrified. I learned a lot that day. I still read his Twitter feed regularly and continue to be impressed at how much pride he takes in being a completely horrible excuse for a human being. He's doing almost everything he said was wrong with the government and running the country like it's a reality show starring him and his family. When you elect a reality show host to be president, the citizens end up playing Survivor. People voted for The Apprentice and got The Biggest Loser instead. My Christian grandparents totally did a 180 on their support for him very recently after he had that photo op while holding the Bible after tear-gassing protesters. My grandfather told me that if Jesus were in D.C. that day, he would have been standing with the peaceful protesters and not with him. Edit, my first award. Thank you. I was frustrated when my grandfather supported Trump through all his scandals, but instead of saying, "I told you so," I supported his change of view. Sometimes it takes longer for certain people to change, and I'm so glad he did. Yes. Oh my God, yes. I've been repeating this over and over and over. Jesus would have been leading peaceful protests. He said, "Love thy neighbor." He didn't say, "Love thy neighbor as long as they are the same skin color, cisgendered, and straight." He said, "Love thy neighbor." Full beep stop. That's the thing a lot of Christians seem to conveniently forget about Jesus. He was a brown Middle Eastern man and a radical revolutionary who wanted to change the system they lived in so badly that the Romans crucified him. He blames every problem on everyone, everything else. Remember when the buck stops here? Well, that's been replaced with, "I don't take responsibility at all." Not me, but for a couple of family members, that church photo and the events leading up to it. Gas out the street for a photo op with a Bible. You cannot write this stuff. And GT, you cannot write this stuff. And if you did write it, everyone would call you a beep writer and ask you what you were on when you wrote it. I had been a very stern Trump supporter since day one. Went to the rallies, bought the shirts, listened to Rush Limbaugh, etc. COVID-19 was the final straw. A friend of mine put it in a good way. At some point, we decided it was bad to listen to scientists and college-educated professionals. I had been leaning away for a while, and then he tweeted out, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts. He's a beep idiot." Yeah, I'm in the "let's listen to scientists and educated professionals" camp. I don't do my own dentistry. I don't even do my own car repair. I don't attempt to grind my own eyeglasses lenses. I do know some things about some subjects, but I sure as beep don't know more than the scientists and educated professionals about most things. I listened to a woman in Texas who claimed to be a physician that was treating her patients with hydroxychloroquine because Trump said it was the right thing to do. Her statement was something like, "I am going to say it in my experience because if I say otherwise, the left will," and then proceeds to say, "The great president of the United States said that this medication was healing and curing people of COVID-19, and since the president is using hydroxychloroquine, I am going to prescribe it to my patients since he is the commander-in-chief." This woman, who claims to be a physician, is going to take the advice of a man who does not have a doctorate degree, who did not go to medical school, and is taking the medication against the advice of other doctors. I can't believe that right then her medical license wasn't stripped away. And that was before she stated that she is prescribing all of her patients hydroxychloroquine and lying to the pharmacy about what it's for because, in her words, an amp #X200B, the pharmacies don't need to know what the medicine is for because that's a HIPAA violation, so I tell them it's for lupus or for treating malaria and they have to give it to them, an amp #X200B. This is all summarized, but I could not believe what I was hearing. It was absolutely deluded and insane. "This is a good day for George Floyd. He is smiling down upon us," was what did it for me. I've been ambivalent for a while, liking certain things and disliking others. Was planning to abstain from the presidential part of the ballot, or write-in. I might actually vote for Biden now instead. Please vote. Please do not skip it. First joined the Marine Corps and befriended a few minorities, and just talking with them and learning their experiences is what honestly changed my beliefs the most. Especially my sergeant, a Hispanic dude. He loved to talk about politics just as much as I did, but he was a liberal and I wasn't, which was fine actually because we both were capable of talking and even disagreeing without it turning into an argument. We became good friends. We're both out now and still talk. I'm incredibly thankful for the experience. Honestly, it changed my total belief system for the better. I even attended a protest in Oakland the other week and have been to a couple smaller ones since. I'm proud of the progress I've made. Edit, spelling edit. Apparently my comment about the UCMJ was confusing. Might be. I was taught the rule was you can hang it with other Marines 2 ranks above or 2 below. It's great that you're open to change and don't think that you just know it all by the time you're a young adult. I'm 75 and I learn something significant and new every single week. I read, pay attention, and remain open to ideas that I didn't have the wisdom to consider earlier. Congratulations, you have done something that too many do not. I love seeing 75-year-olds on Reddit. It's a nice change from the usual demo. Personally, I was in the "okay, I'm going to give him a chance because that's the right thing to do. I'm not going to judge someone before researching them" camp. It didn't take long before I realized this dude is clueless. By that I mean before the end of my lunch break on the day he announced his campaign. However, my father was a full-on Donnie supporter ever since the escalator incident. On occasion he would admit things were bad, but my dad is a bit of a single-issue voter and kept supporting Donnie and ignoring everything bad. The responses to the recent riot seem to have turned him into a Sanders supporter somehow. I'm not sure how he skipped Biden and went all the way to Sanders, but if I never have to hear my dad say "Uncle Donnie" again, then I'm happy. There's a horse loose in the hospital. John Mulaney, Kid Gorgeous at Radio City. His act and how he broke it down really put into perspective how ridiculous everything that came out of Trump's mouth was. Some people, when you say bad things about the horse, will get mad. Those are the ones who opened the door for the horse. And when you ask them why they opened the door for the horse, they say, well, the hospital was inefficient. And that, folks, is the mindset of the average MAGA guy, deciding that the best way to fix a problem is to let a wild animal run roughshod over it. Here's a reminder for current Trump supporters who might be on the fence. When you actually cast your vote, it's just you and no one else there with you in the booth. If you're worried about what your family, friends, etc. will think if you tell them you're voting blue, then you can tell them whatever you need to. Just remember that come November, when the choice is literally in front of you on the actual ballot, it's up to you and nobody else. I voted for Hillary, and have a coworker who relentlessly hates her. She would debate you into the ground if you said you voted for her. So when I went into work after the election and she asked, I just said I went third party. I was so tired, I just didn't want to fight. I wouldn't say I supported him because I didn't vote in 2016. I didn't like my options. When he was elected, I thought maybe he wouldn't be too bad, and honestly didn't give a beep about who the president was because it never seemed to make a difference in my life. But my last straw was his bizarre comments and rants about wind turbines, and his overall anti-environment stance. Of course, his handling of the pandemic and George Floyd protests have fueled a hatred for him that I didn't know I was capable of having for a politician. All I can do to get rid of him is vote, and I'm making beep sure I do it this time. Beep him. Honestly, I didn't support him in the slightest, cried when I learned he was elected, etc. But I actually argued with a friend who was distraught about his win, saying that he probably wasn't going to be that bad. I feel terrible about that now. She was completely right. The most vulnerable people in our country have suffered terribly from his poor leadership, and I was dismissive of that out of naive, unearned optimism for what I thought would be his respect for the office. I lost a friend because of Trump too. I'm not even from the USA, and when the whole Trump wagon began, even with no knowledge of politics, I could tell he was racist and would be terrible for the country. I had an online friend from the US that I met through gaming, and we'd been friends for years. Like 8 to 10 years, and we talk a lot too, even about personal stuff. We were really close, and I felt like I respected him and cared for him as a person. Then when Trump came up in discussions and he started defending the guy, saying he wasn't racist when shown clear proof of him being blatantly racist, defending his violent actions against people who spoke out against him, I slowly started to lose more and more respect for him, and we talked less and less. The last message he ever sent me that I didn't even bother responding to was the day Trump got elected, and it was, "This is the happiest day of my life. America."